Hello everybody. I hope everybody's having a great night. I sure appreciate everybody stopping by. Tonight we are going to have a kind of special stream here tonight. I was tagged by Budget Outdoors and Survival with a weather environmental tag. So I'm going to do this live, and I have some special things kind of planned. And if it all works, I think it'll be pretty cool. But this is live, and hopefully nothing crashes or anything, and I get through this stream without any bugs. So once again, I do appreciate everybody stopping by. It is always appreciated. I call out a few people here in the chat. I know that Night Shame is in the house. He's a great friend, great YouTuber, great supporter. We got that Murder Inc. In the chat too. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Much appreciated. We got Trout Bum out there in the chat too. Good to see you. Benj Games, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you also. Red Man Paranormal, I hope your night is going great. Farmall Fanatic is out there too. Thanks for stopping by. It's always appreciated seeing you. Who else we got here? Fishing Freak, good to see you, buddy. And Backroad Freedom, I know he's listening, and I believe he's driving, but special shout out to you too. So guys, this tag, it's a 10-question tag about the weather in the area that you live. So if any of you don't know, I live in Minnesota, west central Minnesota. So we get to see some pretty extreme weather up here. Gets hot in the summer and pretty cold in the winter. Get a lot of snow, a lot of rain, and we even see some droughts here and there. So when I get to all the questions, hopefully you guys will ask some questions too, and I'll answer them to my best of my ability also. So like I said, I was tagged by Budget Outdoors and Survival. I'm going to throw his link in the chat here, and it will also be in the description of this video once it's uploaded after the live stream here. So if you guys don't know Budget Outdoors and Survival, it's a great channel. He does a lot of bushcrafting. He's a good supporter also. So if you haven't checked him out yet, I would appreciate it if you'd give him a look. So the first question here is, let me pull up all my stuff here. How hot and cold does it get without the humidity? So again, like I said, I live in west central Minnesota, and so I pulled up some of the record highs and record lows and stuff, and the warmest month in Minnesota is usually July on average. We usually see an average temperature of about 84 degrees, and our record high, which happened in July 29th, 1917, and then we tied it again on July 6th, 1936, was 114 Fahrenheit. So it does get fairly hot in the summertime. It is a pretty humid heat too, so it can get pretty sticky. And with 114 for our record, it can get pretty hot. Our average temperature, like I said, is 84 degrees, so it is a pretty nice summer up here usually, but we do see a lot of humidity too. And then for the cold temperature, our coldest on average month is January, where our average temperature is -1 degrees. How's it going, Wild About Being Outdoors? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. So on average, like I said, -1 degree. Our record low temperature, which happened February 2nd, 1996, was actually -60 Fahrenheit. And I remember that winter pretty well. It was a cold, snowy winter. A lot of blizzards that winter, a lot of wind also. with a negative 60 actual temperature. It was pretty cold. And then the largest 1 day or 24-hour swing of a temperature drop happened in April 3rd, 1982, where we dropped 71 degrees in a 24-hour period, which is a huge swing. A lot of people up here say if you don't like the weather today, just wait till tomorrow because it will change. But yeah, with a 71 degree 24-hour swing, that'll knock your socks off. Yes, that murder ink, minus 60. It is a little brisk, and usually when it's that cold, even if the wind's only blowing about 5 miles an hour, that's a really cold wind chill. Really cold. Minus 60, that'll freeze your face off. It sure does. When it gets that cold, it almost feels like little needles puncturing your skin. And it's interesting too when it's that cold and you go outside and you start breathing in, just the moisture like in your nostrils and stuff will start freezing. And it's kind of an interesting feeling when that happens. So we'll move on to question 2, which is, have you ever gotten heat stroke and or frostbite? So the answer to this question is I've never had heat stroke, but I have had heat exhaustion. This happened when I was a teenager. One of my first jobs that I've ever did was I went around and mowed people's lawns. I had a few businesses where I would take care of their lawn work, mow the lawn, and do some gardening, stuff like that. And one summer I ended up overdoing it. It was a really hot, humid day, and I did get heat exhaustion. And, that still kind of bothers me even today. When it gets really hot out and when I'm working really hard and I start sweating a lot and getting kind of overheated, my hands will cramp up a little bit. So I'm a little sensitive to the heat even today after having that. But I haven't had full heat stroke, but I have had heat exhaustion before. How's it going, my slice of heaven? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Papa Roams Outdoors. How's it going, buddy? Just want to swing in and say hi for a few minutes. Well, it's good to see you. The second part of this question is if I've ever had frostbite. So I have never experienced frostbite. My wife has, though. She has experienced some frostbite, and then again, her fingers and stuff are more sensitive to the cold. They get cold a lot quicker than they used to. But I myself have never experienced frostbite yet, thank goodness. But with that negative 60 temperature, it doesn't take that long to get frostbite. Let's see here. The eyelets on my rod freeze the last trip I was at. Yeah, when it gets that cold, that it does make for even ice fishing outside pretty intense. It's not even good for the fish. So when we're up here fishing, ice fishing, and it gets to be, negative 20, negative 30 degrees outside, when you bring those fish up, if you're fishing outside, their eyes and stuff will start to freeze pretty much instantly. So when it's that cold, even ice fishing it's really hard on the fish if you're doing it outside and not in a house, a heated house. But so question 3 says, how many seasons do we have here? So here in Minnesota, we do have 4 seasons, 4 full seasons. But a lot of people say that we only have 2, which is mosquito season and winter. And I tend to agree with that a little bit. It's usually, you're in full-fledged winter. It starts getting nice a little bit, and then the mosquitoes come out, and it's mosquito season until it gets cold again. Mosquitoes get pretty thick up here. Some nights they can literally pick you up and fly you away. But we do have 4 full seasons, I guess. But I kind of consider it 2: mosquito season and winter. So let's see here. Question. I got question 4. So this question says, how windy does it get? So where I am here in Minnesota is kind of on the edge of the old Lake Agassiz. I don't know if anybody's familiar with old Lake Agassiz, but there used to be an old ancient lake that kind of spewed out from Canada down through Dakotas, Minnesota, down into South Dakota, and it's in that lake bed. It is pretty flat. I live right above the shoreline of the old lake. So where I live right here, it's still pretty flat, little rolling hills, but I would have had oceanfront property back in the day, but I'm about 20 miles or so from where like the forest and the wooded areas start in Minnesota. So where I am without the trees and stuff, it does get pretty windy, and the highest wind gust that is a non-tornadic wind gust. So this is the highest ever wind gust, straight line wind gust that we've had, was 110 miles an hour. So we do experience a lot of wind. Kind of like what I said earlier, if you don't like the weather today, just wait till tomorrow. If it's windy today, it could be calm tomorrow or vice versa. But we do see quite a bit of wind, a lot of straight line winds. But with 110 mile an hour, just regular wind gust, it can blow a few shingles off the house and whatnot. Florida here, Billy says, I love Minnesota. I fished the Basswood Lake for 3 days. It was the greatest fishing trip I've ever been on. Yeah, there's a lot of good fishing up here. It's a lot of lakes up here, a lot of good fishing. How's it going, Logan Rowe? Good to see you. And that Murder Inc. says, sounds pretty tornadic to me. Yeah, 110 mile an hour is, it would make a tornado, but that was a non-tornadic recording, so. I'll move on to the next question here. And the next question is, what kind of precipitation do you get and the amount? So, as you know, I live in Minnesota, we get snow. I'm going to talk a little bit about this picture first. So this picture I took, I believe this was 3 years ago. This is the main road leading up to my house. And as you can see, we had a lot of snow. This was actually the very first time since I've worked at the place that I work at right now, which is about 29 miles away from where I live. This was the very first time that I was not able to drive home. And I've worked there for 10 years, and I've always been able to get back home in a snowstorm. But this was the very first time that I was not able to. This was not a record snowfall or anything, but just how the snow and wind and how it laid in put a huge drift over the road, and I could not get home. As you can see, the wheel tracks and stuff in this drift was actually a big road grader where they tried to clear the road, but they couldn't. They ended up having to come out with a big snow blower and start to chew into the snowdrift, as you can see in this picture here. My wife stood in front of it just to kind of depict how deep the snowdrift was, but we get some serious snowdrifts up here. So back to the question. What kind of precipitation do we get? So for an average snow year, we actually average about 50 inches in a snow season. 50 inches of snow isn't that much snow, but you couple that with the 110 mile an hour winds and you can get some pretty big drifts. So the highest snow amount in one season for our record is 170 inches, which is a lot of snow. The most snow that we've ever gotten in a 24-hour period was 36 inches of snow. And when that happens, when we get that much snow in a 24-hour period, it shuts down everything. All the roads are shut down, and you're not going to be leaving for a couple days. And this is a really interesting stat, is a lot of times our blizzards will last for several days. So the most snow that we've had in a 48-hour period was actually 66 inches. So we have beaten our average snowfall of 50 inches in 2 days before, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, hello everybody in the chat that's new. If you just came in, special hello to everybody. I do appreciate you guys stopping by. Just running through these tag questions that I was tagged by Budget Outdoors and Survival. I'm going to put his link in the chat again. But he tagged me on this weather tag where there's 10 questions, and we're just finishing up here question 5. So the second part of question 5, it would be the rain. So not only do we get snow, but we get rain. On an average year for rain, we get about 22.5 inches in an average season. The most rain that we've had in 1 year, in one season, was 56 inches, which is quite a bit of rain for us, especially how flat it is. So with these pictures here, this picture was taken at my house where we used to live, and there was a little creek in the back, and that creek overfilled when we got a lot of rain in one shot. And as you can see, it pretty much covered half the trees and stuff out there, so the water came up really quick. We can experience some downpours. The record 24-hour rainfall that we've had in one time in 24 hours was 15.1 inches. And when that happens, it sure floods out everything. You can see this is our garden quite a few years ago. This was not when we got 15 inches in one shot, but this was a little over 3 inches in one shot, and we ended up getting pretty good and flooded. How's it going, Bass and Binks TV? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Terry Joe Stahl, tonight they pointed out that we are going to be in the freeze-thaw cycle during the winter for the foreseeable future. Yes, so speaking back on like the temperatures and stuff that I was talking about earlier, right now we are in kind of a really cold cycle right now. On Friday, we are forecasted to get down to -27, and we are forecasted to stay below 0 for 3 days straight, with the highs only being about -5. So we're going to be cold for a little while, and then it looks like it's going to warm up a little bit. But it is January, which is our coldest month usually. So we'll get into question 6. Question 6 says, what kind of storms do you get? So here in Minnesota, we see a lot of thunderstorms. We do see tornadoes also. We can have a line of thunderstorms that pop up pretty quick in the summertime with that heat and humidity that we get, and it can dump 3 to 4 inches of rain in a very short period of time. We don't usually see like long soaking rains over days. It's usually thunderstorms that happen pretty quickly. But this was a really neat picture from several years ago where the clouds were pretty cool. This particular storm did produce a tornado later on that night. We were living in a trailer house at that time. It was the first, my really first experience with a tornado, but tornado sirens went off and everything. And the trailer park, they didn't have like a storm shelter in the trailer park. You're supposed to go down to the local grocery store. So we were kind of ho-humming back and forth on if we should leave or not and go there. we did finally decide to do that. We got into the car and we had to drive about 5 blocks to the grocery store. And that was the scariest 5 blocks I've ever probably driven in a car. The wind came up suddenly. Branches and debris were flying across the road. It was raining so hard that you couldn't see a few feet in front of the car. And it was probably the only time that I was actually a little scared while I was driving in a storm. But we ended up getting to the grocery store there, and they put us all in their freezer, and the storm passed, and we were able to go home relatively quickly. So the second half of this, of course, is the blizzards that we get in the wintertime. We can there's some years where we get a blizzard every week, and blizzards can last 2, 3, even 4 days, where the wind will just blow constantly. And even if you don't get much snow with the blizzard, the wind can sure push it around and make some pretty deep drifts, as I showed in the previous pictures. But especially the wind and the cold, that's probably the most dangerous thing when it comes to the blizzards, is you can get some pretty cold wind chills, and if you get stranded and you're exposed to that cold, you can freeze pretty quickly. You can get frostbite and stuff. So the safest thing is, if you are out on the roads during the blizzard around here, is that you stay with your car. You don't start walking for help or anything. You just stay with your car. At least you have some shelter from the wind and stuff, because those wind chills can get way down there, and even if you have a lot of layers on, that wind can just cut through and cool you down pretty quick. Redman Paranormal. No, I have not seen Bigfoot. Not yet, anyway. So question 7 says, does it flood, drought, landslides, mudslides, avalanches, etc.? Yes, it does flood. We do see floods almost yearly of some type of magnitude. Sometimes the flooding is a lot worse than other years, but we will experience flooding in the springtime. With the snow melt and the upcoming rains of the springtime, if we start getting early rains and we have a lot of snow that's melting relatively quickly, of how flat the land is, we will see a lot of overland flooding. You can see in this picture, this is a interstate, a main road where I live here, and you can pretty much see water as far as you can see. It'll go on for 30, 40, 50 miles, where the land will just be a few feet of water. The way that the road systems are up here is basically they're kind of in a grid. For the most part, there's a road, a county road or a country road, that's every mile, so they're kind of in mile grids. And the farmland in between is pretty flat. The roads are usually built up a little bit, so they're a few feet higher than the road or than the fields. And so when we get the rain and the melt, the fields will fill up, and there'll just be mini lakes all over the place, pretty much from as far as you can see, the eye can see anyway. For the most part, the roads stay open because they're just a little higher. You will experience water over the roadways sometimes, especially if the wind picks up. You can experience some pretty high waves just from the flood water out in the fields, and the waves will wash out the roads, and you can get a 3 or 4 foot wave on what's supposed to be a farm field in the springtime. Terry says, my phone's not keeping up the live stream. Must be the weather. Haha. I'll watch later. Yeah, if anybody is experiencing buffering or anything, just hit that refresh button and it should fix it. But So with that, we usually see, like I said, in the springtime, so we'll have this really weird thaw and frozen kind of cycle in the springtime where the floodwaters will be open one day and then we'll get really cold and they'll actually freeze over. Now this is a picture of a railroad track and then the floodwaters. And as you can see for about 15 miles out on this, and it's all just water. And they do have to close down some of the railways in certain times of the year just because of all the flood water. We had our worst flooding back in 96, 97, where we had a lot of snow and we ended up having a fast melt, and then it snowed again and everything froze up, and we experienced ice dams on the river, and it backed up the river pretty good. And this is a picture of us sandbagging. So it was really cool to see the community come together, and a lot of volunteers, they came together and filled sandbags and helped put temporary sandbag dikes around the city and around a lot of people's houses and stuff out in the country, and saved a lot of people's homes. There was a lot of homes and stuff lost in that flood, but there was a lot of them saved too. And there was hundreds, and well, there was thousands and thousands of volunteers that filled hundreds of thousands of sandbags to save a lot of people's homes and stuff. So it was really cool to see the community come together. After this flood happened, there was quite a few houses bought out in some of the lower lying areas. And if any of you had seen some of my earlier videos where I did some urban hunting, that's actually on the land that opened up to urban hunting, was some of the buyout land. The buyout land was cheaper for them to buy some people out and relocate them instead of building like a permanent flood wall or anything like that, just because there wasn't enough houses in the area to justify the cost. So instead they just bought the houses out and moved them, and just let that area flood every year, and then they opened it up to the public, and that's where we get to do some of our urban hunting and stuff. So and so this picture here is actually a picture of space. It's from a satellite looking down. I could not find where they said how many miles this represents for like length and width wise, but just from judging on this is probably 40 or 50 miles long. That's covered in this photo. But yeah, this is a picture of the flooding from space. So as you can see, there's still snow on the ground, but we've experienced some thaw and some rain already, and the river starts to overflow. So the answer to that question is yes, it does flood quite a bit. We don't really experience mudslides or anything like that because it is so flat, nor do we experience avalanches or anything along that nature. But flooding, we do see that just about yearly. So the next question is, question 8 says, do you experience or is your area known for natural disasters? Now, I think this is kind of a double up of the previous question about the landslides and flooding and stuff. So I guess I would say yes, we see flooding for a natural disaster. We don't really see any earthquakes or anything like that. Although it does happen, and they have recorded some earthquakes, throughout the years, but it's pretty rare, and we usually don't feel them. So I'll just go on to question 9. Question 9 is, lightning is rare. Do you know anyone personally hit by lightning? I do not. I do not know anyone that was hit by lightning. I, of course, have not been hit by lightning myself, but I do have a couple lightning stories. When I was younger, there was a thunderstorm that came through, and we had a lot of lightning in that storm, a lot of lightning strikes. We can see upwards of 100 to 150 lightning strikes from one storm every second. So we do see some pretty intense lightning, pretty intense electrical storms, some of them anyway, where we get a lot of air-to-ground contact with the lightning. So many years ago when I was younger, I was at my parents' house where I grew up, and my bedroom was upstairs. And across the road, we had a neighbor and that had a couple of silos alongside their barn. And lightning hit one of the silos, and I was standing kind of by the window in my upstairs bedroom. And I seen the lightning hit the side of the silo, and it ricocheted off of that. It started a hay pile on fire, and the bolt of lightning, what it looked like, just because it was such a bright flash of light. I mean, it looked like it came straight toward me, but the bolt never did. It ricocheted the other way, but of course the beams of light came, and they were so bright that it looked like the lightning bolt was coming at me, and I actually ducked out of the way. I had that reaction of like, oh man, something's coming toward me, and it actually made me flinch away. But I'll never forget the sound when that hit. It made such a loud cracking boom. It shook the house. It rattled the windows, and you could even feel it inside your chest. It was really similar to being in a car with like somebody that has subwoofers or something on. It just rattled your chest, and but I'll never forget that. I've never seen lightning hit a tree, but I have seen evidence of it. We get a fair amount of tree strikes where lightning will hit a huge tree and split it in half. I've seen trees, big old trees that have huge trunks on them be literally split in half from lightning, and it is pretty neat when that happens. It's a cool phenomenon that a bolt of light like that can have that much power and split a tree right in half. Last year we actually had a lightning strike not far from where I live here. It was on a tarred road. Lightning hit the road, and the road is an asphalt road, and it blew the road apart. It made a crevice a couple feet deep, and it was about 4 feet wide, where it just blew the top of the road right off. But that's some of the power that the lightning has, and some personal experiences that I've had with lightning. But I have not, and I don't know anybody that has been hit by lightning. So we are actually on the last question already. And question 10 says, the main terrain features of your area. So Minnesota is a really cool state, or I think it's a cool state. You can be in the wilderness. You can basically get away from everybody, where there's really nobody around. We got vast forests. We have many lakes. We're known, the state with 10,000 lakes. I don't know exactly the number of lakes that we have here, but there is a lot of them, a lot of smaller lakes. And in the summertime, as you can see in this picture, there's a lot of beautiful scenery. There's a lot of really awesome summer days where it's just beautiful. The temperature is beautiful. The humidity is beautiful. You get a non-windy day, and you just have nature sounds all around you and stuff, and it's just a really cool sight. And then, like I said, about where I live right here is the prairies of Minnesota, and which is also beautiful. Open country, or big open skies. It's flat, just prairie land, farmland. So this is kind of what it looks like where I live. And then that other picture, literally I just drive about 20 miles and I start getting into lake country and where the trees are and everything. And it's really nice. Old Buzzatail, my phone is buffering bad. I'm missing everything. Well, I'm sorry, buddy. The stream here says it's good. I would try maybe refreshing, and hopefully it solves the problem. YouTube doesn't always cooperate. The stream though will be up after I'm done here, and hopefully some people get to rewatch it, and if they're missing some of the stuff here, but yeah, the terrain is pretty cool. You know, it's a really good transition of prairie, forested areas, rolling hills, and you get over to the Great Lakes, and you get a lot of rocky cliffs and stuff like that. It's pretty neat. The boundary waters between Minnesota and Canada, it's a really cool area. There's a couple parks up there, wilderness parks, where they let people in by permit. Some of them let more people in than others, but Voyager and Voyager Park over there, they don't let many people in every year. And we've gone up there camping before for a week on end, and you can literally go up there and not see anybody for a week. There's lakes up there that they don't allow any motorized motors or anything like that, so you got to go in paddling canoe, and you take as much food as you can carry, and you catch the rest and forage for the rest, and it's a pretty fun place to go if you want to get away from the everyday busy life. But that concludes the 10 questions. I hope that everybody thought that was somewhat interesting. I was really nervous about this stream just because I had so many slideshows and stuff, and I was worried about something not working right. I know that a few people said that the stream was buffering kind of bad, so I do apologize for that. If I could control YouTube, I would definitely make sure that nothing buffered for anybody, but I'm kind of in the hands of YouTube, and sometimes it doesn't work out the best. But I do appreciate everybody stopping by and watching this with me, and I think I'm going to call it a night here. Unless if anybody had any questions or anything, I could answer those really quick. Slide Ad said, Minnesota is nice if you like 8 months of cold weather. Yeah, that's right. But like I said, I appreciate everybody stopping by. I guess before I go, I do want to call out a couple of channels that I'm going to tag with this challenge. So again, this is the Weather Environmental Challenge or tag. There's 10 questions. All the questions are in the description of this video, and I will add all the links to the 3 channels that I'm going to tag in there also, but I'll run them in the chat too. And the first channel that I want to tag for this would be G Money Strong Outdoors, which is a great channel. If you are not connected with G Money Outdoors, I do strongly suggest that you go check them out. So G Money, you are tagged. The next channel that I would like to tag for this would be Jag Fishing. He also tagged me on some other stuff that I'll be doing in the next week or so. So Jag, you consider yourself tagged. And then last but not least, I would like to tag Bass and Binks TV. Bass and Binks also tagged me in a different tag challenge, which I'll be doing in the next week or so. But Bass and Binks, if you want to participate in this tag, consider yourself tagged also. And again, I'll leave all these links in the description also. I do encourage you guys, check these guys out. They are great channels, great supporters. Bass and Binks, oh boy. Well, since you tagged me, I figured I'd return the favor and tag you too. So once again, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great night, and we'll see you guys next time.